Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tips. My name is Julian, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Ottawa Senators, continuing that series of videos that we've been making about each individual NHL team, talking about their players, and if I think you should draft each player or not. One quick spoiler, a lot of people are sleeping on the Ottawa Senators. There are quite a few potential steals in your draft if you pick some of the guys I'm going to be mentioning in this video. Before we get started, guys, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Would really appreciate it. Trying to hit 1,000 subs this year, so every subscription counts. Thanks so much, guys. So without further ado, let's jump into the Ottawa Senators projected lines. So near the end of the season, the Senators started to catch fire, and they really started to make almost a playoff push. And so I imagine their top two lines that were so good towards the end of the season will stay pretty much the same. Those lines were Tkachuk, Norris, and Batherson, and that second line was Stuetzle, Pinto, and Connor Brown. The third line, I imagine, will be Nick Paul, Tierney, and Sanford. And on defense, Chabot, Zub, Delzato, Zaitsev, Holden, and Brannstrom. In nets, we got Matt Murray and Philip Gustafsson. So jumping into the players I'm going to be discussing now, and the first one on the list, guys, is Brady Tkachuk, currently being drafted 25th overall on average, and last year had 36 points in 56 games. Where he gets his value, though, is the fact that he shoots a ridiculous amount and he hits a ridiculous amount. He was second in the league in both of those categories last year. So if you're in a Cats league, definitely helps. If you're in a league that those categories count for points, definitely helps as well. If you're in a league that doesn't count hits, though, I'm going to drop him quite a few spots, so I wouldn't draft him quite at number 25. Next is Thomas Chabot, currently being drafted around 120th overall in most leagues, and I see him as an absolute possible steal because Ottawa had the 6th worst power play last year, and Chabot is pretty much locked in on that top power play, right? So his production on that power play could only go up, really, because it can't go down. Ottawa's power play was brutal last year, and it started to catch fire just a little bit towards the end of the season. So if they can keep up that momentum, Chabot's numbers can easily go up if Ottawa can keep that power play up. So really, you can't go wrong with Thomas Chabot unless you're in a plus-minus league that heavily weighs those plus-minus, in which case I'd probably go elsewhere with my draft pick. Next is Tim Stuetzle, currently being drafted around 176th overall, and I like him because he should be on the power play once again, which was starting to click, like I just mentioned, toward the end of the season. Also, his line with Pinto and Brown was also looking pretty decent towards the end of the season last year, so if those lines can stick together, I think he can do pretty well. It's pretty hard to go wrong drafting him as late as he's going, considering the amount of upside he has, right? He was a 3rd overall pick, and he has so much potential. I prefer the next two guys I'm going to talk about on this list, but I still do like Stuetzle this year. Next are Drake Batherson and Josh Norris, being drafted at 175 and 180 respectively. And they're both going to be playing alongside Brady Tkachuk on the top line and top power play. And last year at the end of the season, Josh Norris just caught fire. In his last 25 games, he had 12 goals and 20 points. And he's playing with Brady Tkachuk, so it's not like that kind of production's unsustainable. It's like it's unrealistic for next year, right? So if you're really late in the draft and for some reason you only have 2 centermen and you want a 3rd centerman or whatever the situation is, you need a center, Josh Norris could be an absolute steal. And Batherson I like too because he's still going to be playing that top line, top power play with Tkachuk. He shoots a little bit more than Norris, and he also has a hitting upside. So in bangers leagues, Drake Batherson is definitely the safer play. Next is Connor Brown, who's only being drafted in 16% of leagues. And I don't necessarily think that Connor Brown is someone you should be drafting, but he makes for an excellent streamer if ever Ottawa has a favorable schedule or if he's hot. There was a stretch last year where he scored a goal in 8 straight games. So he is definitely a guy who can definitely catch fire, and he's someone you can definitely reap the benefits of if you stream him when he is catching fire. Next is Matt Murray, currently being drafted in only 13% of leagues. He sucked last year, right? He was not good. He was below a 900 save percentage, had a really high goals against average. Will he be able to turn things around after that terrible season last year? We'll have to see. He seemed to be riding the ship, right, when he got re-injured last year in April. In his 3 games before he got re-injured, he had 2 shutouts. He won all 3 games, and he had a combined 976 save percentage. Yeah, it looked pretty good, but that's a very small sample size. We'll have to see how he looks coming out this year. If he can't come out looking really good this year, watch out because Philip Gustafsson started 7 games last year, won 5 of them, lost 1 in overtime, and ended up with a .933 save percentage. So if Murray can't get his act together quickly, he may be replaced with Philip Gustafsson as a starting goalie in Ottawa. We'll have to see. Either way, though, Ottawa is playing in a tough division, and I do think they're going to win a decent amount of games this year because they are an improved team. I don't necessarily think they're the best team to be picking a goalie from. Next is Erik Brannstrom, and last year had 13 points in 30 games, but he's not someone I'm considering drafting at all. He's just someone to take a note of. If ever Chabot goes down with an injury, Brannstrom is probably going to be that guy going on that top power play on Ottawa, and since that power play is going to be improved this year, should be a lot better, Brannstrom could actually put up some points. Next is Shane Pinto, and he's someone who I'm also keeping a very close eye on, and I have very high hopes for this season. Last year, in 12 games, he managed 7 points, playing on that second line with Stuetzle and Connor Brown. If they reunite that line, I think Pinto may actually have some decent fantasy value outside of plus-minus leagues. I'm not necessarily drafting Shane Pinto, but if the season starts and he's looking real good and he's scoring points, he's someone I would consider streaming. And that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.